sang a song a couple minutes ago called Room at the Table, written by Carrie Newcomer. She also writes beautiful poetry and prose, and this happens to be a book of hers called The Beautiful Not Yet. Kindness is love in human size. It's the country cousin to love. Kindness brings soup when you're sick. It hangs out in the kitchen washing dishes when no one asked it to. It opens the door when your hands are full and stops everything to listen to your story. It's not flashy or fancy or likely to make it to the front page. It's a small practice, and so humble it's easy to forget how profoundly powerful it is. Kindness lightens and softens our days. It reframes the world and expresses love on a human scale. This does not mean I've always lived and worked in situations of goodness and light. I had to learn how to navigate in a tough business, particularly for women. But I made a choice about the kind of spirit that would ground my life and work. Greg Ellison wrote, "I can't change the world, but I can change what is 3 feet around me."
Reading this morning is from Ephesians 4, verses 31 and 32a. Get rid of all bitterness, all rage and anger, all harsh words, slander and malice of every kind. In place of these, be kind to one another, compassionate and mutually forgiving.
Would you pray with me? Sacred presence, as we contemplate how to be in the world today, may you light our way. May the words of my mouth and the meditations of each of our hearts be filled with your insight and your wisdom. Amen. On September 8th of last year, I read you this paragraph from Margaret Wheatley's 2024 book called Restoring Sanity. Frivolity, aestheticism, hedonism, cynicism, pessimism, narcissism, consumerism, materialism, nihilism, fatalism, fanaticism, and other negative behaviors and attitudes suffuse the population. Politics is increasingly corrupt, life increasingly unjust. A cabal of insiders accrues wealth and power at the expense of the citizenry, fostering a fatal opposition of interests between haves and have-nots. The majority lives for bread and circuses, worships celebrities instead of divinities, throws off social and moral restraints, especially on sexuality, shirks duties, but insists on entitlements. Sounds like it could have been written for today. But it's actually a quote from a 2012 book written by William Ofo entitled Immoderate Greatness, Why Civilizations Fail. That paragraph describes the last stage of every civilization. Regardless of geography or religion or who's in power, every civilization has failed in an identical way. The process to get there, the pattern of collapse, is predictable and the same. Margaret Wheatley in her book says that, unfortunately, at this point, we are past the stage where we can make great change in this pattern. and there really is nothing that we are going to be able to do to stop the decline. And I don't know about you, but it feels like the last 10 months have sped up the decline. It's kind of like, for those of you who remember what it was like to play a record album, taking that little knob and turning it to 45, right? You know, it's going like this, right? That's kind of what feels like has been happening. So this doesn't mean that we shouldn't do what we could do, go where we could go to make change happen in this great turning. Yes, we still protest. Yes, we still sign petitions. Yes, we send letters. Yes, we speak up and stand up for those who are most vulnerable. But Margaret Wheatley says there's one other thing that we can especially do right now. And we talked about this a year ago, and it's to create islands of sanity. Whether it's a church or a business or a neighborhood or another community group that we're part of, to create small islands of sanity, not places for people to hide, but places where we can go to have our faith in humanity restored a little bit, to be rejuvenated so that we can go back out into the world and be a positive force for good, be the best selves we can be. And she says that we need these islands of sanity to encourage and to nurture the three most essential human characteristics, which she believes are kindness, creativity, and generosity. Not to say that some of the others aren't important, but she said these three are essential in creating trusting relationships with no judgments, no biases, where people can work together, bringing their skills and their perspectives to the table to try and find solutions to the problems that matter to them. We have the ability as Sacred Journeys to be an island of sanity, to be a place that continues to nurture and encourage kindness and creativity and generosity. I did 6 weeks on those three things last year, and I just want to do 3 this year. 1 each, like kindness, generosity, and creativity, because they're important, because they take practice, because while you're all wonderful, amazing people who are kind and creative and generous, sometimes we forget. Sometimes we take it for granted. Sometimes we go off track because of everything else that is overwhelming us. And so to bring it back to consciousness is what I'm hoping for. To remember about the squeezed cheese that comes out of each of our cans. The piece that I read from Kaye Glennon says, kindness, we're going to talk about kindness today. Kindness is simple. It really is. It's a very simple, humble thing. So just for some fun, throw out one way somebody quickly was kind to you this week.
Checked in on me.
People who checked in on you. Text.
Coworker Robert, I had a very bad coughing fit at work yesterday, and he came home and got me some water.
Okay, so someone who brought you water when you needed it because you were coughing. What else?
Brought us some.
I had help bringing in the pumpkin bread and the fruit.
Okay, so somebody was kind enough to help you carry stuff in today, okay?
Brought us some bargains she found at the grocery store.
Brought you what?
Some bargains she found.
Oh, some bargains they found at the grocery store. Cool. Fine.
They put on a turn signal.
Put on a turn signal. Maggie.
Acknowledged hard work.
I'm sorry. Acknowledged hard work. So you were seen. Marilyn.
My grandson told me he loved me.
Your grandson told you he loved you. Absolutely. Karen.
Acknowledged and listened to me.
Someone who acknowledged and listened to you. All simple things. This is not rocket science in any way, shape, or form, but it makes a difference, right? It made a difference for each of us. The question that Margaret Wheatley shows, or that Kaye Glennon threw out there was, who are we going to choose to be? Actually, both of them threw the question out. Who do we choose to be? She said, here she's a woman in a primarily male music industry, that can't be easy, right? And so how do we choose to affect the 3 feet around us? And the Ephesians passage gives us a nice direction. Now, Ephesians is often attributed to Paul. I'm just going to throw this little piece in there that says that it probably wasn't Paul who wrote it, but someone who was writing in the style of Paul, which they did all the time back then. But whoever wrote Ephesians says, you need to get rid of the anger, and the bitterness, and the rage, and the slander, and the malice, and the harsh words. You need to be done with it. To be on the spiritual path, you need to let that go, and you need to fill up with kindness and compassion and forgiveness. And I find it fascinating that kindness is the first thing on the list. Get rid of all those negative things. Kindness comes to the top. And I know it's not always easy, especially in these days, to get rid of some of that bitterness and anger and rage. You know, we did the No Kings 2 rally, and Julie's sign says, all my outrage can't fit on this sign. And I get that. And maybe some of that propels us to go out and to do some good and to try and make change and to stand up. But you've got 3 feet around you. And what are you going to put out? What squeezed cheese are you going to put out that you can't take back? If we lead with anger and bitterness and harsh words, how do we affect the people around us? Does that create any sort of positivity in the world? No, it's the leading with kindness and compassion and creativity and generosity that creates positive change in the world. So, let's just break it down a little bit. What makes kindness kindness? Doing something without, well, maybe not without thinking about it, but expecting nothing in return.
Letting out your guard to.
You're being vulnerable for just a second to connect with someone else, right? Sue?
Someone does something for you that you didn't expect them to do.
Not expected.
Considering the other's needs instead of what you want to push out there.
Considering someone else for a moment. Yeah.
That's how it comes from the heart.
It comes from the heart. Sure. All of these really simple things. Jerry?
It expresses support.
It expresses support. Yeah. Even a wave can express support. Awareness, again, I see you. How important that is. So what makes it hard to be kind? Anger. Jealousy, hate, your comfort zone. Ego.
Being in a hurry.
That's what you were going to say?
Being in a
If you've had a bad day, I just happen to be cranky right now. I'm all out of ice. Sorry. And we have those moments, and hopefully others will. That's why forgiveness, I think, was on the list in Ephesians. So there are lots of things that make kindness difficult. But again, you've got 3 feet around you and squeeze cheese. Are you going to be squeezing out nice things or not nice things? We choose in every situation. So, the title of the sermon today was Kindness Heals. Because as I thought about it, I think that kindness does heal in maybe itty-bitty tiny pieces in our lives. But it has a healing effect. Can you work with me and flesh that out? How might kindness be healing?
slashes the darkness.
It slashes the darkness. The light shines through the cracks.
It gives you hope.
It gives you a little bit of hope. Hope in humanity for just a second, right?
You can fill your own cup.
It can fill your cup a little bit more. Yeah, restores our souls. Connection, absolutely. We feel seen. We feel less alone. We feel like we belong. And kindness can be encouraging. Kindness can diffuse a difficult situation. And maybe it doesn't make everything in the world perfect, but it changes things just enough, right? So, it was a little thing the other day. I think kindness heals in both directions. For those who give kindness and those who receive it. I was walking into Pick and Save the other day, and somebody was finished emptying their cart in their car, and I said, "Oh, I'll take that cart for you." And I got a look like, "Wow, really? You're going to take my cart from me?" Like this was, a hard thing to do. And I did, I just kind of kept going. He's like, "It's a good one." Like, "Excellent, I scored. I got a good cart." But for that little moment, I had this little bubble of joy in me because I did a kindness somebody wasn't expecting. And who knows what that little moment of light and joy did for both of us as we went about our days. That little moment of positivity in my 3 feet of influence, right? Jerry, I'm telling stories on you. Jerry's telling me a story this last week about going to the National Gallery of Art with his family years and years ago. And while they were there, Robert Hughes, who's often been described as the greatest art critic ever, was there doing some filming. So Jerry said, big deal for the artist, right, to see this very famous person. So what did he do but send his daughter over to talk to him? He said, "We'll send fearless Emily over." And Emily went over to talk to Robert Hughes in between takes and came back over a little while later and said, "Come on over, he wants to meet you." And Jerry said he went over and shook his hand and said, "I really appreciate all you do. I've watched your shows. I think you're great." And Robert Hughes turned around and said, "Well, now tell me about you. What do you do?" It's kindness. Just a little moment of recognition and awareness, and I see you, and you're a human being too, and you're important, right? One last quick story. Margaret Wheatley tells a story about a native community in northern Canada that is known now for having gotten rid of all teen suicide after they'd had an epidemic of teen suicides. And the answer came to them when one incident happened. There was a young teenage boy who was standing on a bridge thinking about jumping. And as he was standing there, hesitating a little bit, a car drove by and somebody waved at him. And that was it. He decided not to jump. And the town took that and said, we need to learn ways to foster welcoming and belonging in our community. And as a community, they took that on. And I can guarantee there was kindness in all of it, a simple wave, a simple I see you, and people's lives can be changed. A little bit of healing happens, but there are no teenage suicides in that town anymore. So as I said, it is practice. Kindness is a practice. It's something that behooves us to be more conscious about, especially in those 3 feet of influence. And so, not only did the kids get ways to be kind, but you all have homework too. So, in these bags are little slips of paper with little ways to be kind. 95% of them require no funds. You should each be able to maybe grab two, if you so wish. I'm not going to force anything on anybody. So, and Sacred Journeys purchased 75 carnations. If you were around last year, perhaps you remember everybody got to take a carnation and give it to somebody in your life. Maybe someone who doesn't get recognized terribly often. Maybe somebody who could use a little pick-me-up. That's to your discretion. You and the kids can all each take a carnation with you. Practice kindness this week. See how that goes. I know when I gave carnation out of the grocery store, I heard it from the woman for the next 2-3 weeks that I went. It's like, thank you so much for that carnation. It's still alive. I don't know how you did that. It doesn't take much, friends, to heal a little tiny slice of the world. To work on creating that island of sanity. It starts here and ripples out.
You know, I think this is germane. Gandhi had a big strike planned against the British, and another strike sprang up, and he told them, I'm calling off my strike. I would never challenge you at your weakest moment. I mean, I think kindness ultimately is about respect for everyone, even your enemy.
Yes. So, to have respect for all people.
Yeah. But somebody that you don't, like, that's what really.
Right. And so again, it's about non-judgment and non-bias and not expecting and not deserving. And maybe those are some of the people we could consider giving those carnations to. All right. Amen.